But for the last couple of days, I've led on the Dallas Cowboys. I've led the show with the Dallas Cowboys, and I've said the same thing. Trade Zeke. I know he's great. But the NFL's all about trading very good players when they're still good. Jimmy Johnson did it with Herschel Walker, and it started this avalanche of trades. Giants just did it with Odell Beckham Jr. The Niners did it with Joe Montana. Packers moved off of Brett Favre. The Colts had to move off of Peyton Manning. You move off players in the NFL all the time that are really, really still good, often Pro Bowl or Super Bowl winning talent players. So a lot of pushback on my takeaway that he's too good and he's too valuable to the Cowboys. Until you read this morning. He's not as valuable to the Cowboys as you think. Without Elliott, Zeke drawing defenders into the box, Dak Prescott wouldn't be as effective as a passer. That's what everybody says. Because Zeke, he forces everybody to jump up in the box, and that leaves big spaces for Dak to throw the ball down the field. Oh, wait a minute. You've heard that trope before, says the article. A great back forces defenses to load the box, which opens up space in the passing game. The problem is there's a new stat out. There's no evidence to suggest that Zeke does that. Zeke's presence does not draw any more loaded boxes. According to the NFL.com's Next Generation Stats, how many times did Zeke face a loaded 8-man box? 25% of the time. That ranked him 19th in the NFL in 2018, right behind Elijah McGuire, meaning it's a bunch of nonsense. We talk about analytics all the time in baseball. We talk about analytics all the time in the NBA. Here's some analytics in football. Nobody's loading the box up for Dak. You know why Zeke? You know why Zeke's a great running back? A, he's talented, and B, the Cowboys' offensive line. It's amazing to me, whenever we get a great running back, it's as if we forget the offensive line. Can we acknowledge that Zeke, in his first 3 years in the NFL, Dallas has had the best offensive line in the NFL in those 3 years? We're not going to acknowledge that. DeMarco Murray, with this offensive line, it was younger, but it was still emerging as a force, had 1,800 yards and 13 touchdowns. How was DeMarco Murray without this Cowboy offensive line? Zeke's numbers last year, by the way, dropped. His yards per game dropped. His touchdowns dropped. Why? Because the Cowboys had injuries on the offensive line. Travis Frederick didn't play. Supposed to play this year. Tyron Smith was not 100%. So that offensive line last year, for the first time in the last couple of years, they started getting old and injured. And his numbers went down. As the offensive line has aged, they have more injuries, and Zeke, you start to see a little erosion. By the way, Zeke's talented, really talented, maybe the best running back. I'm not denying that. But as Dak Prescott, the quarterback, grows and matures, he'll become less reliant on him. That's also what happened with Russell Wilson and Marshawn Lynch. Russell depended on him for a couple of years. Marshawn Lynch left, and Russell blossomed. By the way, last year, at the beginning of the season when Todd Gurley was healthy, we were having arguments on this show, and I'm sure it was on other debate shows. Zeke or Todd Gurley, who's better? And it was kind of split. It was kind of a 50-50 thing. And like the Cowboys, the Rams have a young quarterback, Jared Goff, who has not hit his ceiling, and many of you say, oh, come on, he's overrated. Gurley makes Goff. Gurley got hurt, but because the Rams have a very good offensive line, they found C.J. Anderson, a human bowling ball, and they got to the Super Bowl without Todd Gurley. Why? Because Jared Goff became less reliant on Todd Gurley as he's aged, which Dak will do. I'm not saying Dak is Jared Goff. I don't think he's that talented. But they're close. At this point, they're close. So you got all these things. If a team's offensive line is the elite, let's take the Pittsburgh Steelers, then you can lose a great running back. Le'Veon Bell leaves. James Conner last year in 13 games had 12 touchdowns. By the way, I'll give you another example. There's a guy in the NFL named Marlon Mack. He's a running back. He was like a fourth-round pick by the Colts. You never talked about him. Then last year, the Colts went out and drafted 2 offensive linemen, and they were both home runs. The Colts now don't have the best offensive line in football, but it's the best young offensive line. Well, what do you know? Marlon Mack last year in 12 games almost got to 1,000 yards. Did Marlon Mack get better? No, the offensive line did. It's amazing to me that we acknowledge the importance of offensive lines all throughout football. It's really the key to New England's dynasty. It's not just that Bill Belichick is brilliant and Tom Brady's great. Tom doesn't get hit. Tom always has time. By the way, In that Super Bowl loss to the Eagles, what was it that lost it for the Patriots? Tom got hit and fumbled. The losses to the Giants in the Super Bowl, what lost it? Tom Brady faced pressure from the Giants' defensive front. Even Tom Brady is vulnerable to an offensive line that gets overwhelmed. If you go to the Super Bowl against Atlanta, Tom Brady had a horrible first half. The Falcons were teeing off on him. Tom Brady had a great fourth quarter. What happened? The Falcons' defensive line was gassed, and the Patriots' offensive line dominated. We don't acknowledge the offensive line of the Cowboys in any of Zeke's greatness. I'm not saying he's not terrific, but if you put him behind the offensive line of the Houston Texans, and then you give me the Texans' Lamar Miller behind the Cowboys' offensive line, Lamar Miller's going to average half a yard more a carry, and Zeke's going to probably average half to 3/4 less a yard per carry. And they'll be a lot closer in what you would get per game out of them. You can't dismiss the Cowboys' offensive line in all this. It's been the best offensive line in the NFL for 4 straight years, maybe 6. And now as it ages and gets expensive and more injury prone, maybe now's the time to move off Zeke and keep paying the offensive line and drafting the offensive line. Because if you keep paying all these Cowboys, if you pay Dak and Amari and Zeke and those linebackers and DeMarcus Lawrence, you know what you're not going to pay? The offensive line, which is getting really expensive and old. So, you know, it's I'll say it again. There's a stat out this morning that shows it's not like people defend the Cowboys and Zeke any differently. That's a bunch of nonsense. And as Dak grows, they will and should become less reliant on Zeke. I'd trade him and get a haul of picks and get rid of this preseason nonsense. Judicial 2 years ago and now financial. He wants a new contract 2 years out. I saw a story yesterday. Chris Sims played in the NFL college football. He was at some golf tournament, and he did what do they call those, like a walk and talk interview with Aaron Rodgers. And, you know, Aaron had Mike McCarthy, and it worked for a while, won him a Super Bowl. And then at the end, it kind of got corrosive and didn't work, and it was pretty obvious. A lot of different stories out there. Aaron denies some of the stories, but there's stories that Aaron would, you know, roll his eyes in the huddle and didn't like McCarthy, made it difficult. And so now Aaron's got a new coach, and the new coach is like, I have a system, and it's pretty strict, and we're not into audibling out of plays. And there's been some pushback in the media. Aaron's like, you know what? I ad-lib a lot. I audible a lot because, you know, I do things that other quarterbacks can't do, which he's not wrong. But I've always thought he ad-libs differently than other quarterbacks, and I'll get to that in a second. So he was walking and talking with Chris Sims, and Aaron was talking about audibling, and people are making too much of him kind of ad-libbing and audibling. Here's the thing. I'm for audibling. I am for audibling. Peyton Manning and Brady audible a ton, but there's different ways to audible. Okay, Tom Brady takes the play, goes to the line, sees a defense, and audibles out of a defense that he thinks is problematic. Peyton Manning did the same thing. Omaha, Omaha, Omaha. Aaron Rodgers audibles differently. Aaron Rodgers, and this has now been reported by somebody who is in the huddle, gets the play call, rolls his eyes in the huddle, goes to the line, has given up on the play, and throws it out of bounds. Aaron led the NFL in throwaways last year, meaning it's a middle finger to the coaching staff. There's a difference between walking to the line, Brady, Breeze, Manning are legendary. Walk to the line, I don't like the defense, this is a problem, I'm audibling out of it. There is a difference between that and the criticism of Aaron Rodgers, which I think you can pinpoint to data, which is gets the play, rolls his eyes, rips the coach in the huddle, confirmed by a teammate, Jeff Saturday, and then goes to the line, already, regardless of defense, I'm not going to do this. Gets the snap, initial guy covered, chucks it out of bounds. It's called a throwaway, and Aaron led the NFL by a country mile in that stat last year. That's the difference. It is very generous to say some of Aaron's ad-libbing is an audible. Aaron is different. He's got a different personality. You become your personality as a quarterback. Cam Newton is very expressive. He is a very dramatic, the way he dresses, the way he talks, his press conferences. And he's also like that as a quarterback. He's a very expressive quarterback. He's got moods. He's emotional. He emotes as a quarterback. You become your personality. Tom Brady is very focused and driven. You see his home life, and if you watch him on the field, he is very efficient, focused, and driven, and very coachable. Aaron's personality, and this has now been documented by everybody from family members to teammates to coaches, is a little condescending, tends to be aloof, smarter than you probably, also make sure you know he's smarter than you, and that becomes his personality. Ad-libbing in the huddle before he gets to the line. Chris Carter talked about this on First Things First. I'm not here to bash Aaron Rodgers. This stuff is confirmed by teammates, the eye rolls, the NFL throwaway lead. I think it's being generous to always say, Aaron just sort of wants the freedom to ad-lib. No, Aaron makes his mind up often before he gets to the line that this play's not going to work. Here is Chris Carter this morning on First Things First.
Aaron Rodgers, he can learn a lot from what's going on in New England. Tom Brady never complains about what they call and what they're going to do. He makes it work. Aaron Rodgers makes up excuses after the game. Now, they might be real, but they're not for us to hear. He's supposed to take the diplomatic approach after the game and blame it on himself, blame it on the teammates that he know are responsible, and then move on. Aaron hadn't done that.
Yes, he hasn't. Remember, adapting is really the way to survive as you age. I'm a broadcaster. If I don't adapt to the changing landscape, I die as a broadcaster. I've seen a lot of sportscasters don't adapt and they die. Okay? I talk some soccer. I talk more NBA. I talk growing sports. I cut stuff that doesn't work as well. Adapting is how you survive as you age. Tom has been the great adapter. His body, his style, his ice cream, his film style. He's been the great adapter. Deep drops, short drops. He practices how to get hit. Brady actually does that. Aaron, smart as he is, not so far a great adapter, which is, Chief, Cowboy, get rid of the football. You're 35, increasingly brittle. Stop ad-libbing. Get rid of the football. And we've already had public discussions on the new system doesn't quite work for him. So I think it's a fascinating year for Aaron. I just want to create clarity. I don't think he audibles. He may often audible the way Brady, Brees, and Manning did, but I think there are other situations where he makes up his mind pre-line of scrimmage, and this is not just me making it up. It is confirmed by throwaways and a report the eye roll stuff in the huddle. That's just not me making stuff up. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.